We are facing alarming trends in the rising volumes of people illegally crossing our southwest border or arriving at our ports of entry without documents. This increased flow presents, currently at our highest levels in over a decade, both a border security and a humanitarian crisis. Regardless of anyone's preferred policy outcome, the status quo is unacceptable.
Sobering new statistics today from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. In this fiscal year so far, there has been more than a 300% increase in the number of family units, or people posing as family units, apprehended compared to the same time last year. And in total, CBP has arrested more than 268,000 illegals at our southwest border just in the last 5 months. Put that in perspective. That's almost the population of Durham, North Carolina, which is the 77th most populous city in America. Yet the Democrats want to block President Trump's national emergency declaration because, you know, there's no crisis at the border.
Well, this is a manufactured crisis.
I think there's a problem, not a crisis.
A wall is a colossal waste of money for a crisis that doesn't exist.
This is really a manufactured crisis on many levels, manufactured by the Trump administration.
Well, it's not manufactured unless you have open borders. And yeah, they're going to come right in. Even the liberal New York Times is more concerned about the plight of the illegals than their threat to our safety. Just look at the headline on the front page today. Border Patrol facilities put detainees with medical conditions at risk. Well, why is the left attacking our border agents? They're the ones putting their lives on the line every day trying to protect us, the American people. Joining me now, Howie Kurtz, Fox News media analyst and host of Media Buzz, Sundays right here on FNC, and Tim Ballard, a former DHS special agent and founder of Operation Underground Railroad, which rescues victims from human smuggling. Great to have both you on. Howie, why does the New York Times, after laying out, I want to read part of this, they lay out this harrowing story about the border, and then they claim in editorials it doesn't exist. This is part of what they wrote. Let's start with today. An average of 2,200 migrants a day are now crossing the 1,900-mile border with Mexico, many after grueling journeys that leave them injured, sick, or badly dehydrated. Yet most of the nation's Customs and Border Protection facilities along the border lack sufficient accommodations, staffing, or procedures to thoroughly assess health needs or to provide more than basic emergency care. And then March 5th, the New York Times editorial board says that national emergency doesn't exist, saying the National Emergencies Act doesn't define what an emergency is, a loophole Trump took advantage of. Contrary to all the evidence, there's basically not a crisis at the border.
Well, Laura, I think the New York Times news story is a legitimate journalistic look at a humanitarian crisis, which, by the way, quotes Kirstjen Nielsen as saying we're doing everything we can, but we don't have the resources, which says that many of the migrants arrived, they already have chronic diseases, or they were in.
Why is that the American taxpayers' fault?
Well, it is a situation.
Or responsibility. It's horrible and it's awful. And parents who do this, I understand why they're doing it, but they're putting their children at risk, and themselves are, we're going to talk to Tim about, at risk of being trafficked themselves.
Fair
correct?
enough. But it underscores how much of the media are totally focused on this side of the story. This is their emergency, not the broader emergency that President Trump.
Not the American people, but other people.
And it enables them, many of them, to blame every bad thing that happens to migrants on the Trump administration.
Right. But even, and Tim, I'm trying to get at this, they lay out what is an emergency situation. Now, they can blame Trump for it and say it's all Trump's fault that we don't have five-star facilities at our border, hotels, full concierge medical care, you know, English language lesson. I mean, we do have a lot of good stuff for helping people. But they lay this out. So in their description, it is an emergency. They just want us to throw more money at it.
Look, I look at this through the eyes of kids. That's my job. I spent 12 years on that border, by the way, as an undercover operator, special agent, looking for children who are being trafficked into the United States to be sold to our American pedophiles. This is an emergency to these children. They are coming in here. They're being dragged by. There's a 300% increase in adults bringing children who aren't their kids.
Yeah.
So these kids are vulnerable to being trafficked. 93% of these kids that we're recovering are outside the port of entry. Okay, so where are they going? A lot of them are being used as pawns because we have this strange policy that Congress passed that says bring a kid and you can claim you know,
right, which
asylum.
is again the Democrats and Republicans both. I blame both on the angle. they are both responsible, both parties, for not addressing this asylum issue.
Right.
That as long as you come in with someone you say is related to you, you cannot be sent home. You're not. Basically, children are resettled here, even if they're temporarily, for a short period of time now separated. But they are both settled here together, unless you can somehow figure out they're not related. Where is our Congress?
No,
and Trump's the problem?
Yeah,
we're
incentivizing smugglers. But think of this. Think like a criminal, right? You bring a kid across, and if you're caught, you can say, asylum, I get to stay here. But we know that they're not doing that, all of them. They're taking these kids and they're selling them into our sex markets here in the United States. And so we have to control the movements. A wall, a barrier, controls the movements so we can identify who's coming in and save these kids. Through the eyes of the kids, I see this. Save the kids.
Yeah, there's the children aspect, the suffering aspect, the health aspect. And a lot of people watching tonight are like, look, I say this, we have two blocks from where we are broadcasting. Every night we drive home, and there are 7, 8 people on the street. It's freezing out tonight.
Yeah.
And these appear to be American citizens, and they're on the street 500 yards from the nation's capital. And and it's sad, it's horrible, but a lot of Americans watching tonight go, why are we putting all of our resources on helping people who need to be able to thrive in their own countries?
The part of the border,
as much as it's sad 2 blocks from here.
Yeah.
Sad what's happening with Tim. Tim's documented all of this.
We see it on North Capitol Street. The part of the border situation that the media minimize is the illegal immigrants who get through and sometimes cause, as we well know, problems for American families. But at the same time, you said Democrats are trying to block President Trump's emergency declaration. Well, there now appears to be enough Republican defections in the Senate that's vote's going to go against the president. It'll be vetoed, I understand.
It doesn't surprise me one bit. Why does it not surprise me? Like, we're going beyond the headlines here. You dig into beyond the headlines every day. And Howie, you do such a great job.
Thank you.
This is about what has always happened with these two parties. Republicans love to have the cheap labor flowing in for businesses because they hate this. The worst thing for American businesses is when wages start growing up. Sorry, but they want to keep a downward pressure on wages. The more people coming in, the lower the wages can be in certain sectors. And that Democrats, and I want to play this for Nancy Pelosi, this is Nancy Pelosi, I believe today, in an interview, about what kind of tells what the Democrats' motives are. Let's watch.
These newcomers make America more American. And we want them, when they come here, to be fully part of our system. And that means not suppressing the vote of our newcomers to America.
She's talking about legal immigrants.
Right.
We want everyone to be able to vote.
Right.
But this is going way forward. I mean, we have Democrats pushing to legalize illegal immigrants to vote. Even if they're not citizens, that they should be able to vote. That is a new movement building slowly in localities and cities. That's what this is about. Votes for Democrats, cheap workers for Republicans. And meanwhile, kids are being hurt, as Tim has documented, and the American people are just like, okay, how much more money do I have to spend?
The challenge for the press is to
billions.
The challenge for the press is to focus on all sides of this crisis and not be swept away by one faction or another's political.
I agree, but why do they not do front page articles in the New York Times, Howie? Not that you speak with them. More about what's happened with illegal immigrant crime in the United States. That they always they commit less crime than native-born people. Well, yeah. That's the same old trope. It doesn't feel like less crime when you don't have a husband to go home to, or you don't have a brother or a daughter, or someone's been trafficked. Why don't are you getting enough help from Capitol Hill on what you're doing? I mean, you get some help, but either party helping?
We are getting help from I'll say from the Utah delegation. They've come strong. Senator Hatch, Senator Lee, Congressman Curtis. We just got some bills passed that we brought to them. They passed the bills. President signed them into law in January. Bills that will help us work internationally to stop. It's got to be a comprehensive approach because these kids are trafficked internationally. Almost 800,000 a year across
What's a
borders.
Typical man, mostly men, right? A typical man, is there an age that engages in this disgusting, despicable criminal
it's the hardest thing because there is no profile.
There is no profile.
It's scary. They're professionals. They're educators. They're everybody. We've arrested law enforcement officers, and you can't detect. It's very difficult. That's why we have to be proactive as a nation to find these kids.
But we have a 300% increase of adults with people they say are related to them.
And they're not.
How do we track that down? We're doing DNA tests? Of course we're not. It's a problem. Both of you, That's an issue I care very much about for the American people and humanitarian, financial, otherwise. Thank you so much.